Hey folks, Wally DM here, and today we're going to take a look at two puzzles that you can combine and run in your D&D or TTRPG game that are based on Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Now, if you've never played the game before, that's fine. You can run these just as normal as you would any of my other puzzle videos. But if you have played Skyrim before, then you're going to recognize a lot of the terrain and pieces and probably the puzzles themselves. So I've been really looking forward to doing this one. I am a newbie to Skyrim. I just started playing it on the Nintendo Switch and I fell in love with these puzzles, and I hope you like the way that I present them today. So let's get started and dig into this. This is going to be the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim puzzles. Before we get started, I do want to mention that if you'd like the written version of these puzzles, they are available now to the patrons of the channel at the $2 level or higher. You can download those today in PDF form on Patreon. Also, if you like the content that I'm producing and want to support the channel in other ways, be sure to hit that subscribe button or pick up a copy of my book, Wally DM's Journal Puzzle Encounters, available now on DriveThruRPG. So let's begin with the first room of our Skyrim puzzle. Now this is going to be a setup that's going to include 3 different rooms and 2 different puzzles. Now the first puzzle is going to take place in this room, and I've taken this one primarily straight from the video game, with the exception of this lectern here that is holding a book. Now when our adventurers come in, they're going to see a few things. They're going to see the Nordic Pillars that are in the back, and if you played Skyrim before, you're going to definitely recognize those. They're going to see a throne, and they're going to see a lectern with a book on top. So let's begin with the throne. I think that would be easiest, and I'm going to have this made of stone, and it's going to have some chips out of it. It's going to be eccentric looking. It's going to be very old, but if someone wants to sit in this, they're going to be able to do so. Now, if one of the characters decide to take a closer look at this throne, I would allow them a DC 15 investigation check, and on success, they're going to be able to determine this throne in particular operates some type of a pressure plate or a trigger mechanism to open a door. Now, if the player rolls a 20 or higher on that investigation check, I would also allow them to be able to determine that each of these Nordic puzzle pillars are connected to the throne, and if they were put in the correct position, then this throne would be able to push down on the pressure plate and open whatever seems to be hidden. So let's take a look at the Nordic puzzle pillars, and again, these are straight from the game of Skyrim, so if you've played it, you're probably going to recognize these. Now, all of the characters have to do is simply touch the emblem. Right now, all 3 of them have a emblem of a whale that is facing forward. Now, if they touch that emblem, it is going to rotate and reveal the next emblem. So this one here would be a hawk, and then a snake. And the same with these. If this is touched over here, it'll rotate from whale to hawk to snake and back to whale. Now let's take each pillar one by one, because of course these have to be set in the correct position. Now if our rogue comes over here and investigates the first pillar, they're going to notice something, and I don't think a roll is necessary for this. They're going to be able to see some rock crumbling down, and if they look up, they're going to see a hole in the cavern or the ceiling of this chamber, and they're going to be able to see sunlight coming through. So this pillar in particular is partially lit by sunlight, and they're going to be able to see the sky above. Now let's say our sorceress comes over and takes a look at the second pillar, and with a DC 12 investigation, she's going to be able to find some loose rocks around the floor of this pillar, and she's going to be able to pull a few away and see that there is water underneath. Now there's not a lot, perhaps there's maybe some type of underwater stream or something like that. That's totally up to you as a DM, but for the purpose of this puzzle, we just need to have this pillar in particular surrounded or have access to some type of water. Now our third pillar, let's say our druid comes over here. This pillar here is solid. There's no holes in the ceiling or water underneath, but this entire area is overgrown with grass, weeds, and vines. Now that's going to leave our book that is here on the lectern. Now this book is the entire key to the puzzle, and it makes the puzzle very easy. So if you'd like to make this puzzle a little bit harder, then perhaps you're going to put this book somewhere else for them to find, or perhaps you don't use the book at all and you just see if the players can solve the puzzle without it, and I think they could with no problem. But regardless, a DC 12 investigation check, the characters are going to be able to determine that this book is very fragile. It is weathered and worn, and if they were to try to move it, it will probably crumple and be destroyed. However, there is information, and the information they need is on the left and right pages of this book. Now, on the right hand side of this book is just a simple image, and they're going to see this image of a winged scarab, and we'll get to that as we progress further into the puzzle. But now on the left hand side of this book is going to be the following: whale in the sea, so should it be; eagle in sun sky, so should it be; snake in the weed, so should it be; man in the throne, so should it be. So with all of the information, do you know how to solve the puzzle? I'll give you a second if you'd like to figure it out. Did you get it? Great, let's go over the answer. Now the book makes this a very easy puzzle, and honestly there's nothing wrong with easy puzzles in your game. I think they're a lot of fun. So let's take this line by line. Whale in the sea. Now if you remember, we had some water underneath. There's no reason that couldn't be some type of seawater under there. So if our druid were to come over here and touch the emblem until it rotates back to whale, we've got our whale in the sea, or our whale in the water. Eagle in the sun sky. Again, we have daylight coming in over here, so if our rogue were to touch this one and rotate this back to eagle, we now have our eagle in the sky. There's sunlight coming down and the sky is above. Snake in the weed. Again, our druid can come over here and touch this emblem until we get the snake. And this one is given by the clue of all of the weeds, the grass, and the vines that is growing up around this pillar. And the final is man in the throne. So now that all three of these are in place, all we have to do is have our fighter come over here and sit in the throne. And when they sit in this chair, a secret passageway is going to be revealed, and they're going to be able to continue on to the next part of the dungeon. So our adventurers come through the secret door and into the next room of our Skyrim puzzle dungeon. Now, if you've played Skyrim before, this large chamber door is going to look very familiar. I think it's fairly iconic for the game. But again, if you have never played this game before, it doesn't matter. This puzzle is going to work for you just fine. Now this very large chamber door has a few things that we're going to need to pay attention to, and this is the door or the objective for our characters to get through. Now most notably is going to be these 3 rings, and within these 3 rings are 3 emblems that go down the middle. Now in the middle of the 3 rings is this iron lock, and in the iron lock is 3 different holes and the outline of what looks like a claw. Now, if the players haven't already figured it out yet, you can allow a DC 12 nature check, and they're going to be able to determine that the claw needed to be able to be placed into this iron lock is going to be the claw of a dragon. Each of these bronze rings have 3 different emblems. There's a moth, a bear, or an owl. And by simply touching the emblem, the bronze ring will rotate and flip between the 3 of them. But regardless of where they put the emblems with the bronze rings, they're not going to do any good without the iron claw that goes into the middle. And with a DC 12 investigation check, they're going to be able to determine just that they are missing a piece, and they need to explore further in order to find a claw that will fit this iron lock. Now this is where our puzzle is going to deviate from the puzzle in the game. If our characters are up looking at this, they're also going to notice one more thing, and that is on this iron lock, this middle iron piece that is here, they're going to see a metallic scarab, and they are able to take that scarab off of the iron lock if they choose to do so. And if you remember, that is the same winged scarab that they've seen on the right page of the book. So I'm sure by then the characters are going to feel that this is an important piece and something that they're going to need to have. Now let's say the fighter tries to take the scarab off the iron lock. He's going to be able to pull that off of there, but he's going to be able to tell that it has a magnetic property, but it pulls off with no problem. Now if he holds this in the palm of his hand and he's wearing armor, then the scarab is going to sprout wings, and then it's going to attach to his armor. But once again, he's going to be able to pull that off if he needs to do so. So with regards to the scarab, as long as it's within 2 feet of something metallic, it's going to fly over and attach itself to it. But it's also very easily to take back off. But that's all we have in this room, so we need to move over to our final room where we're going to get the final pieces of the puzzle so we can get through the chamber door. Now in our final room of our Skyrim puzzle dungeon, our adventurers are going to find 3 statues of dragons in this gallery type room. Now if they're to take a close look at these statues, they're going to be able to determine that these statues are made of plaster. Now if they're to take a close look at one of the claws of the dragon, let's say our rogue comes over and looks at this dragon here, then the rogue is going to be able to determine with a DC 10 investigation check that all of the claws of these dragons would fit the iron lock that's on the main chamber door. Now on that same investigation check, if they roll a 15 or higher, they're also going to be able to see certain sigils and markings that are on each of these dragons. Now after they've seen these sigils, we would also allow them a DC 15 Arcana check if they want to know some more information, and on a success, they're going to be able to reveal that these are protective sigils with evocation magic. Now it seems likely that the characters are going to want to come over to one of these dragons and chop off a claw so they can use it in the iron lock in the main chamber. But of course, each of these dragons are trapped. So if the characters just try to remove one of these claws and it is the incorrect claw, then they are going to trigger a trap. And once this claw is severed from the plaster statue, then the entire area within a 20-foot radius is going to fill with poisonous gas. Now anyone caught in this 20-foot blast is going to need to make a Constitution saving throw, or they're going to take 3d6 of poison damage. And of course, they'll take half that much on a success. So now let's say our characters don't want anything to do with the poison, and they're going to back out of this chamber a little bit, and perhaps our sorceress is going to throw a fireball in here and destroy everything. Well, that's when all heck is going to break loose. If the plaster dragons are destroyed, whether they're hit in the middle or something along those lines, maybe hit with a fireball, then for each dragon that is destroyed, there's going to be a massive explosion and cloud of poisonous gas. And this is going to reach out to a 100-foot radius. So anyone in this room and in the previous chambers are likely going to be affected. Now these are going to be the equivalent of a fireball. They're going to take 8d6 of poison damage and half as much on a success. And again, that's going to be 8d6 for each dragon statue that has been destroyed. But of course, if they survive that, they can come back in here and they're going to see among all of the plaster and ash, there is going to be an iron claw. And they can take that iron claw back to the main chamber. But let's say our adventuring party wants to be more careful. They've seen the arcane sigils, they realize that each of these dragons could explode or have something with the evocation magic, and they decide to try to find a safer route. Now, all in all, we have 12 different claws amongst the 3 dragon statues, and they realize that one of these claws is the key to get them out of the door. With everything that's been seen and everything that's been presented, do you know how to solve the puzzle? I'll give you a second if you'd like to figure it out. Did you get it? Great. Let's go over the answer. Well, the answer is actually going to be our magnetic winged scarab. So if the characters were able to grab that and they brought it with them, it's probably best going to be used by someone that's not wearing metal armor or has metal weapons. So let's say our druid is that such person, no metal on them whatsoever. So they're able to carry this magnetic winged scarab around, and all they need to do is they need to walk around each of the claws and hold the scarab in the palm of their hands. If they put it in the correct position and get close enough to each claw, if that particular claw is the iron claw, then the magnetic scarab is going to attach to it. The magnetism is going to be powerful enough to go through the plaster. So let's say the druid is able to go around. We find out that it's this claw on the very bottom. So our druid is able to detect that because the scarab is going to fly out of its hand and attach itself to the outside of this plaster claw because there's actually iron underneath of it. As a side note, I think it's a little funny looking at the size of these young dragons compared to the size of this druid. They're probably going to need a fly or a levitate spell in order to see if these upper claws are the iron claws. So they're going to need to be able to float up and be able to inspect each one. But now once they find the iron claw, they're actually going to be able to safely remove that from the statue without any incident of poisonous gas. Now that they have the iron claw, they can come back to the main chamber door, and it's going to fit perfectly into the iron lock. Now they still need to figure out which way the emblems are on each of the bronze rings, and just like the puzzle in the video game, if they actually look at the iron claw, they're going to see from top to bottom a moth, a bear, and an owl. So if they put the rings in order, with the outermost ring being a moth, the middle ring being a bear, and the lower ring being an owl, and then put the iron claw into the iron lock and give it a turn, they're going to be able to open this large chamber door and continue on exploring the dungeon. Now the iron claw puzzle is actually a lot easier in Skyrim. You defeat an enemy, you obtain the claw, you look at it in your inventory, it gives you the combination to the brass rings, input the combination, and you're on your way. I was really inspired when I first encountered this puzzle in the game, but then I wanted to make it a little bit different if I was going to run it in D&D. And not only that, but I was recently inspired by Moon Knight, where they had a flying scarab, and I thought it was really cool, so I wanted to include that as well. Making it a magnet worked perfectly. Take the magnet, and it is able to detect the iron claw through the layer of plaster, and we're on our way. But of course, we're going to have characters that are going to want to destroy the statues looking for the iron claw, so I thought making them a trap, a big old burst of poison, would be a lot of fun as well. Be sure to leave a comment below and let me know what you think of this idea. So that's all I have for you today. What did you think of the puzzles? Is this something that you could use in your game? And if so, what would you do differently? Be sure to leave a comment below and let's get a discussion going. Thank you very much for watching, and on to the next.